there, fearfully and wonderfully made human. Welcome back to the Holistic Counselor Podcast, where I hope faith, science, and holistic healing intersect. I'm Diana S. Rice from Through the Valley Therapy and Transform Mind Consulting and Coaching. My guest today is Anna Green, licensed mental health counselor and chief clinical officer at Thrive. Anna and I first met at a Lynn University event. As we walked through the parking lot before the conference began, I noticed her beautiful accent, and you know I love accents and the stories behind them. We spoke briefly, and something about that initial exchange made me want to continue the conversation, so we later met up more intentionally to get to know each other. When I learned that she studied fine art in England before becoming an art therapist and clinical leader, my curiosity was immediately sparked. Over the years in my therapy practice, I have worked with many highly creative clients, and I've seen how the creative mind is often misunderstood. Sometimes it's mislabeled, sometimes it's overdiagnosed, sometimes it's medicated in ways that unintentionally quiet expression instead of helping it mature. One of my favorite quotes is, "Art is meant to disturb the comfortable and comfort the disturbed." That tension between disruption and comfort is often where emotional healing begins. As a person of faith, I deeply respect creation because I love and respect the ultimate creator, the one who formed each of us so uniquely. Creativity reflects design, expression reflects humanity, and learning to understand our inner world is not weakness, it is wisdom. Anna is licensed in Florida, Indiana, Arizona, and South Carolina with over 10 years of experience in mental health, addiction, and palliative care. She is trained in psychodynamic psychotherapy, EMDR, mentalization-based treatment, often called MBT, and, of course, art therapy. She has contributed scholarly work in art psychotherapy addressing complex clinical presentations and now leads the development of innovative evidence-based patient-centered programs designed to help individuals gain clarity, move beyond past challenges, and achieve lasting change. Today, we're exploring creativity and mental health and what it means to understand ourselves when words are not enough. Whether you are a clinician, a person of faith, someone navigating trauma, or simply a human trying to make sense of your emotions, I hope this conversation leaves you feeling seen, understood, and encouraged. Because healing is not just about diagnosis, it's about clarity, it's about connection. It is about learning to understand your own mind and heart with compassion. Anna, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Your introduction made me giggle a little bit at how we met. That was a great meeting, and I'm glad we've been able to continue the conversation. Thank you for
Oh,
having me.
yeah, for sure. So before we even talk about theory or your leadership and all the things, right?
Sure.
I love to start with your story. You studied fine art in England
Hmm.
before becoming an art therapist. What
Yes.
first drew you toward art as a way of understanding people and healing?
Yeah, good question. So I did art throughout school, and had volunteered throughout a lot of my youth in different settings, had the opportunity to be creative in different ways in doing the fine art degree. I didn't have in mind art therapy at that point.
Okay.
I didn't know it existed until I was doing my fine art degree. But my art has always involved people. I've always done a lot of kind of personal character studies, observing the way people move, the way they dress, the places that they find themselves in. That's a lot of what my artwork has been personally. So the curiosity of people through my own creative exploration. And then it was when I was doing my fine art degree that I learned that art therapy existed and was
Mhm.
able to combine my experience of wanting to be in a helping profession of some kind and art together, and learning that that even existed. I was like, oh wow, this is a great job for me because it combines my two passions.
Right.
And being in fine art for my undergrad, in the UK was not what I had expected it to be.
Really?
I, in a brilliant way, like I don't think I quite knew what I was getting myself into. I thought that I was going to be learning how to make. I'd be
Uh,
doing painting classes, drawing classes, sculpture classes, and
right.
we didn't. We learned how to think.
Really? So is it
Yes,
more
it
like
was very
theory?
conceptual. It was no, it was not
It
art
wasn't
history
theory?
either. It was very,
Okay.
very conceptual art. And what I mean by that is learning how to think about art, how to talk about art, understanding the intention from the artist's perspective, why you make what you make. So a lot
Oh,
of questions, a lot of answers, a lot of deep discovery, a lot of reading. Why do I do what I do? Why am I interested in what I'm interested in? Why am I curious about people rather than how to make? The making kind of was secondary to that.
oh,
So
wow.
it really formed a lot of the direction I took next in kind of how to ask questions, how to understand.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
So I looked over some of your art. You sent me your link, right? And I was like, wow, yeah, this is unique. I mean, this is what I love about art. I'm not an artist, but I think all of us have the ability to be an artist, honestly, because if we're
Yes.
made, to me, how I see it, if we're made in the image of the ultimate creator of God, right? To me, it's God. Uh, uh, um, it's just like we have creativity, but what happens is this world will mush it down or make you think into too much into a left brainer or something like that. I really think that we all have, it's like a childlike kind of thing that happens within the soul to express ourselves, right? Because words are not for everybody, not everybody
Yes.
can speak. So, for someone that has never heard of art therapy, because some people will listen to this and be like, art therapy, oh, okay, so we're sitting there finger painting or we're
Coloring in.
coloring in like a book or a workbook or and that's art. Like I don't want to put any of that down.
No,
It's
no, no, it's part of it.
right. It's part of it. These are layers. There's different parts. And then I know I've heard people like, because I was in the film industry and then I was
Mm.
helping out with a city ran thing with art, like fine art. And we would have to sit there and vote what was fine art and what was crafts.
Yes.
And so I need a little more explanation too, because art therapy, fine art. I mean, and that's what I want people to understand. There are people that see art and they have, and it's in our field. Every field has people that think they're better than others. And then there's people that are just genuinely in there trying to do their best with the gifts and talents they were given. And some people will say it is fine art. Okay. I need that explanation myself because I still, to this day, when we were trying to vote and everything, and I get it, it's someone that had a degree in art. That was one thing that they were allowed to come to the art festival if they had a degree in art. And it's just, but I don't want anyone to be feeling like they can't do it. So art therapy, like, what is it? And
Mm-hmm.
it's not just drawing, is it?
No, no. The way that I describe it to patients, because I still run an art therapy group weekly right now.
Okay.
I describe it as art therapy. It's a form of psychotherapy where art is used as a way to express yourself as well as talking. So when you're in an art therapy group, you're in an art therapy individual session, there's typically a range of materials that you can use, whether that's digital or whether that's pen and paper or clay or whatever it might be, or a camera. Um,
Mm.
you can, again, every art therapist will approach it differently. Some are more directive than others
Mhm.
in how they approach a session. But I explain it as art therapy is a space where you can explore how you feel, how you think, places, situation, dreams, thoughts. Um, and it's also a space to be playful. And you can make whatever you want with whatever you want. I always say that there's kind of only two rules in an art
Okay.
therapy group that I like to say. The first one is try not to rubbish or insult your own work or anybody else's.
Mm.
The second one is don't touch anybody else's artwork without asking them.
I guess
Just to be protective protective of the space and protective of the artwork. But
Yeah.
so art therapy, it really creates a platform to express yourself in a different way. It can be complementary to talking, or it can be the talking.
Yeah.
You do not have to be an artist to do art therapy. That's kind of the biggest myth that I like to shift right away,
Hmm.
is you don't need to have any skill to be here. There's nothing wrong with stick people. There's nothing wrong with scribbles. There's nothing wrong with random words on the page.
Yeah.
Anything goes. And it's non-judgmental, and it's also not a lesson. I'm not an art teacher. I'm not
Mm.
teaching you. There's no
Hmm.
right or wrong way to do it. Whatever you make is what we're going to explore, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And I think because you have that degree, because that's another thing, like us therapists, I'm not a certified art therapist, but I have used art therapy
Mm-hmm.
in my practice because that, like when I worked in alternative high schools, Anna,
Yes.
there were some people that come in with such extreme trauma, select mutism.
Mm-hmm.
They were not able to express, but when I was able to just give them, and I'm like, just do whatever. You're here with me for an
Mm-hmm.
hour. And then little by little, when they started trusting me, and then they would start showing me things, and I was just blown away. And it was the same with some of those that were in gangs and stuff like that with the rap, spoken word. It's that kind of therapy where they did
Mm-hmm.
not know how to maybe speak like we do, right? Completely
Mm-hmm.
like that, but they knew how to just get that anger out
Yeah.
with two words here, three words here, and it all made sense.
Yeah. It is. It creates an extra layer of safety. And what I mean by that is whatever you put on the paper, it's not going to harm you. It's not going to harm anyone. And even if it's not paper, you can punch a bag of clay if you need to.
Hmm.
You can throw it on the table. You can get red paint everywhere. It's a space where you can make a mess.
Yes.
And then we put the room back together again.
Right. No,
There's a
yeah,
containment.
right. It's so many people who struggle to put words, right, what they feel, especially when if they grew
Mhm.
up in environments like I was talking about with some of my clients and they weren't welcomed. Why can art sometimes feel safer than words? Like, what is it about it? Is it the kinesthetic? Because you know how we know about EMDR, and I've spoken to EMDR specialists, but to me, I'm thinking art is doing at the same time as thinking, and it's moving the system stuff out of the system. Like it's giving you something to actually utilize. Because sometimes talk therapy isn't enough. For some people, it's great, but do you see what I'm getting at? It's like the movement of the anxiety coming out or the anger or the things that have been held in for so long in the subconscious or in the system. What do you think about that? Anna,
Sorry, I
did
lost
you hear?
you.
No, that's okay. This happens. Did you hear the question of like art?
Yes.
You heard the
I,
question
I
of
I think
move.
it was about why is art feeling safer than words? Was that the question there?
Yes, yes, and how it moves through your body. So it kind of, I was talking about EMDR, like, like
Yes.
sometimes you EMDR is hitting different parts of the brain, so it works in that manner. So to me, I'm thinking art when you're moving it out of your system. So why can't art sometimes feel safer than the words?
Mm. I think that a big part of that is we do experience a lot in life without necessarily putting words attached to it. We live in and through our eyes a lot of the time, or there may be some experiences that we have that were beyond words or beyond the established, like beyond having a growing vocabulary to even articulate them or understand them. So art is an opportunity to see what comes up, both in our, both in our plans, but also seeing if there's other kind of symbols or themes that unearth ourselves that we didn't maybe even expect to come up. Sometimes it can surprise us. Um, and it can be, particularly if you grew up in an environment where saying things out loud, there would be punishment for that. There would be extra shame for that. Like I'm saying, there's something safer about putting it in an image.
Mm,
than by putting words on a page or even
yeah.
saying the words out loud.
Yeah.
It can feel a little softer or more approachable
Yeah.
as a way to express oneself.
Do you have a favorite medium that you use for art? Like, because you have art groups, so you
Yes.
understand and you've studied it, but I'm sure that as you were learning fine art, and we all have a
Mm,
story, I'm not going to get deep into your background unless you want to share
sure.
it or so, but most of us that go into therapy or, we have our own stuff or layers of like, this is why we got so curious in human behavior because of our own stories or stories we heard, or we saw a neighbor's mom talking to herself and turned out she was schizophrenic. Like I've heard it all. And so to me, what was your favorite medium? Because that to me is something too. Like I know there's people that just love clay and that's all they do. And
Mm,
and then there's some people that do the oil and the stuff that comes out of their brains. I'm just like, I had a client who would show me her artwork and I'm like, you are expressing what you are now working through with me in that art.
mm,
And that's what we see like Van Gogh. I mean, like you could just see people's heart and vulnerability in the artwork. And I think sometimes the artist is misunderstood. You know what I mean
mm,
by that? They are misunderstood.
mhm,
Like somebody that might not understand like a psychedelic art piece will be like, that
mm,
person's crazy. And do you see? And then it's
mm.
like,
There's more to it.
yeah, I know I just asked you two layers of questions, but see, that's my brain. I am going off script. Sorry. And
No, no, that's okay.
but you see
That's
where I'm
okay.
getting at?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
what was your story back in the day that made you really love what you loved to do, along with how do we break these myths of like when we go to see it? That's why I love that quote, right? Because
Mm,
sometimes somebody will walk in and be like, oh, and it made them feel like, but like,
mm.
what say you?
Yeah. Um, in terms of the art media question that you asked, what type? I feel like I kind of have two styles. My main media though is painting, and that can be watercolor, oil, acrylic. And then I also have more of an illustration side to myself as well. One is more from my imagination, just kind of my own abstract shapes, seeing what it becomes, how I'm feeling. It's kind of much more of what I would call more like my therapeutic art.
Mm,
And then my other style is maybe based off what I'm seeing around me or images that I've taken. So I kind of have the two. And I do talk about different media in art therapy with patients. Like I might give some direction
hmm
based on how they're presenting. For example, if I have a patient who likes things a certain way, and maybe struggles with that idea of it's okay to be outside the lines and to be a little messy or to not have order or to be fully in control.
mm.
Once I've built rapport with them, I might kind of prompt them to explore a material that is harder to control
Oh, I love that.
so that there is an opportunity to gain comfort with something that's harder to control in a session, in a therapy space, or a material when it might be harder to do that outside of the therapy room.
Yeah, that's like
So whether
rewiring
that
the
is
brain,
by,
right?
yes,
You're rewiring the
yes,
brain to get them to understand. Well, I'm thinking like OCD, anxiety, and
mm-hmm,
those that have to
yes,
have so much control. Like I have to stay in the lines, and then you're like, no, let's go outside the lines, and they're probably freaking out.
mm,
But at the same time, they trust you enough, and that's therapy. See, that's the
yes,
therapeutic part. Okay.
yes,
Wow.
discomfort in that change and
hmm
learning how to play within that.
Okay. Yeah,
Um, yes.
that is.
Um,
That is so important in art therapy.
mm-hmm,
Okay, because
mm-hmm,
that's what we need to get at too. Because some people are like, "Oh, you just go and color for an hour," but what you just said, that to me is the therapeutic component. What else can you use? Because that makes sense for that. But what about someone like that's depressed? What would you like
mm-hmm.
utilize for someone that's depressed? No.
I don't necessarily change my direction based on diagnosis or presentation.
hmm
That's not where my approach personally. It's going to be quite open at the beginning. I'm very non-directive in my approach as an art
Okay.
therapist.
Yeah.
It's really, how are you feeling? How could you reflect that in an image? Is there something on your mind, something you want to be curious of? So let's say they are coming to me with depression. I want to kind of see where they go with it first.
Hmm.
And then once they start, I might give prompts in the moment, or just be more curious in the kind of questions that I ask about what they make.
Mm.
Like, how do you feel when you look at your image? If it's let's say it's a character, where are they going? What are they doing? Imaginative in my questions, just to
Yeah.
understand their inner world more.
Yeah. That would make
Um,
sense. And I bet you too,
mhm.
that's when sometimes stuff comes up that's
Yes,
heavy for the clinician,
absolutely.
right? And
Absolutely.
do you work with children too, or
I have.
okay.
A lot of my career, I haven't in the US, but in the UK, my first position was, I called myself a traveling art therapist. I worked for a county council school service. So like you, I was going into schools with my suitcase of all my art materials, going to
Wow.
one school for say one student, four
Yeah.
schools in a day, going in, doing this. And that
Yep.
was from um, and then when I worked at the hospice, that was ages 2 to 19. So quite a number of years. I want to
Wow.
say maybe 4, 5 years, roughly, with children. The youngest age 2,
Wow.
with art therapy. Um,
Hospice, palliative care, which is the hospice you're talking about, correct?
yes, they were not the unwell. I was working with, when I was at the hospice, I was working with the children and family members of the
Oh,
adult
oh
patient,
my gosh. I thought you
rather
were.
than, I did not work. I did work at a children's hospice for a while as
Oh,
well, but
wow.
I predominantly worked with the siblings
Okay. Yeah.
at the hospice,
Yeah.
and families. That was more of my work. But
Hmm.
the education setting where I worked was kind of more mainstream mental health and in
Yeah.
mainstream education. Um, so I have worked with some children, and it's not that different of approach than working with adults. Just a little bit
Well,
more glitter.
a little more glitter. I love that. I love that. So now I'm curious with this mentalization-based treatment or MBT, okay?
Yes.
Because I'm like, wow. Because honestly, this is probably the 110th episode, right? And I'm thinking like I
Mm,
have tried to get everybody from every modality on this show. And so I'm like, oh, a new thing. Like, all right, let's figure out what this is, right? Mentalization based treatment or MBT, which can sound
yes.
intimidating to people outside the field. In everyday language, what does mentalization actually mean for someone trying to understand themselves or their relationships?
Yes. Yes. It is a complex word to explain it. The easiest way to explain it is mentalization, or mentalizing is a process of understanding what's going on in your mind and what's going on in somebody else's mind. And
Okay.
when I say what's going on in somebody else's mind and your own mind, I mean how you feel, how you think, your intentions, your desires, your beliefs. Understanding that and being curious of that. And that awareness that we're in a conversation right now. I want to be aware of what's going on in my mind in this moment, what might be going on for your mind in this moment, and keeping both of that in mind while I'm sat here.
Okay.
So it is very relational.
Okay. Who made it? Who made it up? Where is it from? Is it American or is it from England?
No, it is not. It's growing its awareness in the US.
Oh,
There are more providers being trained here in the US.
oh, that's why I haven't.
The
Okay.
main training for
Mm.
it is by Anthony Bateman and Peter Fonagy. And the main training is at the Anna Freud Center in London, which is where I did my training.
Anna Freud. Wait, that's Sigmund's daughter?
Yes, it's at the Anna Freud Center. It's in North London. It's a really amazing organization, lots of training and different services, but that's where
Mhm.
they kind of run the training out of.
Okay.
Um, and they have conducted evidence-based research on mentalization-based treatment. It is particularly helpful for patients with personality disorder, originally borderline personality disorder, but is now broadened out of that. There is expanded training as well on using it with children, adolescents, other diagnoses, and systems as well. And I did my training, I want to say back in like 2019, 18,
Okay.
and then 2020, I think I finished it around then.
So was it
And
like
with that team.
like a 2 year training or something? What was it, like a
Yes,
certification?
it's in phases, and you have to
Okay.
be supervised. You have to
Oh,
kind of
wow.
complete a report under supervision to be a mentalization based training practitioner, to
I'm
have
still
practitioner status.
I'm still curious on what makes it different, say, than just talk therapy or psychodynamic therapy that her poppy, her daddy did. You know that we all. I mean, everyone knows who's the father of psychology, and for those that don't know
Mm-hmm,
that, we like those in the field, we should know that because that's our training, right? Sigmund Freud,
mm-hmm.
right? So, I mean, what else is there a workbook? Is there a curriculum? Like, how does it, is it step by step, kind of like EMDR? You have to ask the 10 questions, or IFS, or stuff like that. I want to know more about MBT.
Of course. So it is traditionally a little bit more of a long-term therapy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the full MBT program, and I worked in an MBT program in the UK before I moved. Patients would have an individual MBT session. They would have something called MBTI, where it is a valuable part of MBT for patients to learn the
Okay.
theory, to have an understanding as to what mentalizing is, how it influences your attachment styles, your diagnosis, misunderstandings. There's also something called the poles of mentalizing, which is about how what kind of lens you see your relationships in, whether you are someone who is more automatic in nature or more controlled in nature, more self-focused, more other focused, to
Mm-hmm.
give you some examples. So patients learn that theory to gain understanding of their own mental state.
Is it an
um,
assessment they take? Is there like 100 question assessment, and then by the end it scores it, or anything like that? Like, how, you see
Not
what I
part of
mean?
it.
Okay.
Yeah, I understand. So it's not assessment based.
Okay.
The MBTI is an opportunity to learn how to apply the knowledge to themselves and their relationship with others. And it is a combined process of individual gaining an awareness of the theory and group as well. Traditionally, there's an MBT exploratory group or process group where you are in a group where
Uh-huh.
you are. The aim of the group is to encourage mentalizing. It's a space where you are with other patients who may be struggling with mentalizing in certain aspects. Um, and the facilitators are there to prompt, to explore, to challenge,
Okay.
to create the most effective communication spaces possible.
Wow, I'm curious how that would work with borderline personality disorder.
Yes, I've
You
done that.
know, how I'm just wondering, because I know in the past when I've had clients that have been diagnosed with borderline,
Mm-hmm.
DBT probably was the one that helped them the most. So to me, MBT, like, what would be, I don't know. I guess I'm just now curious. Now I'm going to go do a deep dive after we hang up to really go into
Absolutely.
that, and I'll probably put if there's a link for other people to
Yes, I can
learn
share.
in the show notes. I would love that, because to me, that's important, because in our field, when clinically speaking, we can't learn everything in the 2 years we get our master's degree, and things change, because let me tell you, I got my master's, almost 2 decades ago, and a lot of other modalities have grown and learned and reached and come out that actually do help. Like, and so I'm always trying to learn new things. And it's important because some of us, we get a client and they get misdiagnosed, or they get,
Mm-hmm.
the wrong kind of treatment because the clinician doesn't know. They're not trained in every single thing, and so they're, if
Mm-hmm.
you sometimes you just see through the eyes of what your training is without exploring more and stuff like that. So to me, MBT, like I would love to know a lot more about it for
Hmm.
any clinician that's
Hmm.
listening, because I have people from all walks of life that
Yeah,
listen to the show,
absolutely.
you know?
Yeah.
So now I want to know how art therapy and MBT work together to help people recognize their emotions, understand
Hmm.
others better, and repair relationships. Because especially when there's been hurt or misunderstanding, because that's what I've noticed in borderline. Because sometimes we think of like just the diagnosis. Here's the diagnosis. Here's the treatment, and this is who you are for the rest of your life. But
Hmm.
honestly, Anna, the more I notice the DSM and how it depends on your belief systems and stuff like that, because I've seen cultural incompetency and people being diagnosed
Mm.
too quickly because of the
Yes.
conventional insurance model. Right away, you have to, even now,
Have
because
some.
I'm right, you have, I literally, there's a law that was put on private practice practitioners that the second someone calls and if you have to diagnose them and you don't even know them, just so because I don't take insurance. Do you see what I'm getting at?
Mm.
So I'm like, no. I want to understand though, like especially creatives, because there's so many creatives like that have a diagnosis and then they're so busy in that, and then their art and creativity gets diminished. I've seen that like hardcore, and then they become, I don't want to say vegetables, but then it's like there's a fine line. We're trying to help. Like it's first do no harm. So MBT and art therapy, how does it
Hmm.
respect the human, especially if they come in with diagnosis after diagnosis?
Mm. Yeah, they're very complementary of each other, because I think they both really explore curiosity.
Mm, that's what's missing.
That is, I use that word probably too much. It's probably one of my buzzwords as a clinician and as a supervisor. Be more curious.
Well, let's
But
explain
they
that.
both,
I want to let's go to that
yeah.
rabbit hole, because I think you just nailed it.
Mm,
Curiosity. And, and
yes.
and what people fear, I think, is when they don't understand, they want to label quickly to be able to control the situation in order to, there's so many different layers of our job. But curiosity, what's that
Hmm.
actually mean?
Yeah, and in MBT, we we do teach about curiosity as a basic emotion,
Oh.
as an emotion that is there to help us survive as a human race.
Mm,
Without curiosity, we would still be putting a stick and a rock together trying to make a fire. We wouldn't have found water by now. It is there as a survival skill. So when I talk about curiosity in MBT and art therapy, what I mean by that is we don't know what a patient is going to say in session. I can't predict how a session is going to go, and I don't believe I should predict what's going to happen in therapy or how it's going to
okay.
play out. I'm arriving at a point of discovery to be alongside a patient, as they learn more about themselves and find their own sense of meaning. That's where I see them both being complementary, because in NBT, curiosity, or as they call it, the not knowing stance, as a
Mm,
clinician, is one where you are meeting the patient where they're at. You are being curious of any assumptions that they make. Let's say, they come to a session, I know they're mad at me. Oh, could you tell me a bit more about, how you're noticing that they're mad at you? What
mm,
what what is it? What if where's that come from? How did you get there?
yeah,
Really taking the time to slow down and understand, how did we get there?
yeah.
What does that mean to you? What are you noticing in that moment? And art therapy is very similar in, what did they make? How did they get there? What does it mean to them? What do they see? What do I see? Can we be two curious minds looking at a shared image together? So
Mm,
instead of keeping mind in MBT, which you also do in art therapy, we also have a third object being the artwork that we're keeping in mind as well.
mm,
So in MB, and I have done mentalization based art therapy groups.
wow.
and merge the two, and there is a lot of that being practiced, particularly in the UK, in certain health systems in the UK, combining the two, because they are very complementary in that sense, because it's going to be wherever the patient takes us in their
Yeah.
creativity.
So it
And
sounds
there's
like,
a
oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, that's okay. I was just going to say there's a quote that I probably say far too often. It's by Wilfred Bion, where he talks about the need for therapy, that it's important for there to be two anxious people in the room. I don't know if you're familiar with this quote. That there should be two anxious people in the therapy room, both the therapist and the patient. Because if the therapist arrives at the session having already got an understanding of where the session is going to go, then why are you showing up?
Oh, wow.
Like the importance is of going in not knowing,
Yeah.
to be curious, to be open. If you're turning up to a therapy session as a therapist expecting it to go a certain way, then where is your discovery? Where is your openness?
Yeah. Curiosity, though, you're right on. To me, it's
Yeah.
you're. Yeah, I've been and I'm still curious. This is why I'm going to keep now talking about this situation, this modality is curiosity. I think what happened to many in I can only speak to my own experience here and what I've seen. It's been diminished or taken out, especially in conventional treatment, because when the mental health system, what I've seen, especially after COVID, has become, I hate to say we've been Uberized, like Uber, you know what I mean? Like now they see, oh, we can make some money on these clinicians. And so here we are, like, okay, you need to see 35 clients and see them for 45 minutes. And here is what you need to do. And these are the questions you need to ask. And you need to hurry up and fill out all these. And guess what? Us clinicians, what I'm hearing and seeing, I have clinicians as clients too. The burnout, the compassion fatigue, the moral injury. I mean, I'm seeing, and then throw in social media and all the other things, and it's just like the curiosity is being like squished. And for me to hear that MBT and like what, I'm like, oh, we're going back to like Rogerian, Carl Rogers, like, hey, let's respect each other in the process and not just assume right
Mm.
away, like, oh, she's doing this or he's doing this or they're doing this and boom, 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 this is what it is. Because that's the thing with clinicians, because I'm a supervisor too. I want to go now into the supervision because, you support clinicians as a leader in higher levels of care.
Mhm.
What do you see therapists needing most right now, emotionally,
Mm.
spiritually, or professionally, to stay grounded and avoid burnout?
Mm. Yeah, no, it's a pretty good question. Good quality supervision is the first one, where it is a space to openly talk about transference, counter-transference, how you're feeling as a therapist, your own discomfort in sessions, things that you're reading, you're listening to. Space for that, not just case discussions purely based on how to help the patient, but how you're feeling as the therapist with that patient.
Yeah.
That's something that I really valued as a trainee. It's what we call them in the UK as a
Okay.
trainee therapist, is how do I feel as the therapist with this patient? What's my approach? How am I feeling in the room with you? What's coming up? Really a safe space to explore that, not just to get gaining some skills and tips. And I think it is also very helpful for clinicians to hear how another therapist might approach something.
Yes.
I remember it took a really long time before I actually heard another therapist say how they spoke to a client. I was like, oh, that's really helpful to hear. So like some role play, to build some comfort and confidence, doing their own therapy
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
well. Like if
Yes.
something is coming up for you and you're noticing a sticking point, a pattern of discomfort, don't decide that you're now just not going to work with that population.
Right.
This is an opportunity to grow and overcome that the same way you would want your patient to,
Yeah.
rather
Right.
than end the therapy or anything like that. I think it is important for clinicians, particularly trainee clinicians, to have their own therapy. It's
Yes.
mandated in the UK. It's required as
It
part of my
was
training. I know there are some institutions here
right.
that do, some
Some.
that don't.
Right.
It's less common here.
Yes.
But I do think that that is very valuable. Having balance, having your own way to process what happens in sessions, whether that is, you know, making your own artwork after a session, and then throwing it away, or going for a walk, like your own way to digest and to transition from work mode to personal mode, whether that's, you know, changing your clothes, listening to something on the car ride home, a way to transition.
Yeah.
The other thing is keep reading. I feel like during training, a lot of therapists do a lot of reading, a lot of education. And I remember a lot of what I read during my training. Some very valuable material that I still look at every now and again.
Like
That
what?
would be,
What do you like? What is it? Like, what's your
yeah. Do you
go-to?
know
Because
that
to me, I have my book.
my most recommended book, it's funny, I actually have it next to me, not planned for this whatsoever. I was going to recommend it to somebody. It's Patrick, it's quite, I don't know how old this is actually. Yeah, it's 1985.
Wow.
But it's Patrick Casement. It's called On Learning from the Patient.
Okay.
Um,
Listen, I never even heard of that book before, Anna.
the reason I like this book, and I
Yeah.
started reading this as a trainee and then when I first graduated, because you get a lot of supervision in your training, and then you all of a sudden go to like once a week, once a month of an hour. And I
Mm-hmm.
was a bit like, how am I supposed to keep all of these patients in mind? What am I doing with all of this material? I don't have the same amount of consistent support
Right.
to talk about
Accountability.
it
Right.
anymore.
Yeah.
Not just accountability, but just reflection.
Right.
Like, I don't want to go from session to session without thinking about my patient or
Right.
exploring or understanding what's going on. I want to take
Yes.
pause. This book was kind of helpful in developing an internal supervisor.
Mm, yeah. Wow, that's good. So who wrote it again? I want to put it in the show notes.
Patrick Casement.
Okay. Patrick Casement. And what was
I
the
believe
name
he's
again?
actually I believe he's actually an analyst.
Okay.
I can send it to you.
Yeah, I
But
love
yeah,
that.
that's one of the
Your go-tos that
one of
remind,
my
yeah,
go-tos.
it's
I tend to
important.
recommend it to if I am supervising
Yeah.
interns, or helping train staff. It's one that I recommend they read.
Do you supervise? Are you a qualified supervisor in the state of Florida?
Not yet. I aim
Are
to
you
be in the
working on
future.
that? Oh,
I
good.
aim to
We
be,
we need
yes.
we
I
need
aim to be.
yeah, to stay grounded, like
Mm-hmm.
it's important because I do hear a lot of clinicians just really tired. And
Mm,
I think it's honestly it's not just clinicians. I really see is that after COVID, we're now, even though it's been 6 years, we're now like exploring other things and it's like social. I think it's like everybody needs to touch more grass, not
mm,
smoke more grass, but touch more grass because that's the thing that's missing is like the connections or like the communities. And I love that. So let's talk a little bit about, for someone that is like, okay, art therapy, I'm not a creative, or they think they're bad at art, or, what would you want them to understand about creativity as a human capacity rather than a talent?
mm. That it's a way of getting in touch with a different part of yourself that you might not give attention unless you try it. Um, that it is probably something you do without even knowing you do it. But like you said, creativity comes in many different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Even if, let's say, you're playing sports or you're doing like computer programming, or I've lost track of industries at this point, but you get the gist.
Yes.
It probably
Architect,
requires, yeah, yes,
construction,
it
like, yeah.
requires anything in my mind that requires a level of imagination, problem solving,
Hmm.
requires creativity.
Yeah,
I think there's a
exactly.
lot of creativity in problem solving.
Hmm. No, for real.
because thinking outside the box, exploring what's going on. So I think it is an integral part of the human experience, and that's what I mean. I think people probably can do it more than they realize, and finding their way.
Yeah,
You don't have to copy what anybody else does.
exactly.
Find your way to be creative. Might
Yeah.
be through exercise, might be through music, or what you listen to, or how you decorate your home, how you
Yeah.
dress,
Yeah.
um, what you read. There may be a way that works for you.
Yeah, it's taking the time to be curious, to actually find
Mm-hmm.
your way in a
Yes.
compassionate way, because a lot of clients and patients that come to us, they come with so much guilt and shame and stories that the world has told them, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
when they're in safe spaces like yours or mine, we give them the ability to be creative without that
Yes.
judgment. Like, because, I remember my art teacher was like, no, you did that wrong. And I'm like, well, I'm not
Yes.
an artist, so I was, I
Mm-hmm.
was a little sassy, but,
Yeah.
but you
But
see,
you talking about that is I worked with older adults for a little while, and that was one of the things that I had to help with art therapy right at the beginning, is getting over the trauma of how teachers approach them in school.
yeah,
Particularly older adults. If you couldn't do it, you weren't in that class. Like it
yes,
was, you
yep,
were taken out of it. You were told you couldn't do it. Don't bother. Go focus
hmm,
on math or something else.
right,
It was not seen as a space to express yourself or be
no,
playful. It was draw the fruit that looks like the fruit, or don't draw the fruit.
yes.
Um,
No, you are so right on. I'm back in high school in art class, and
yeah.
Coach Clark. I'm sorry, I love you, Coach Clark, if you're still alive. But he, you know what? But it was like, here it is. Here's the curriculum. You got to do this with
Mhm.
the flower, with the fruit, with this and that, and then that was it. Like, and then when I went to college, I think I took music, not therapy, but music class. But that's what I said. You learned about history, musicians, Chopin, all
Mm.
that stuff. And so I'm like, all right, that's pretty cool.
Mm.
But it's just like, and like, you know, I just want to leave the audience with a few simple, accessible practices, right? Because they can't
Mm.
afford to come to, many people can't afford art therapy, or they might be seeing a therapist that doesn't understand curiosity. It's more of like
Mm.
case managing and diagnosis management, right? So to me, it's like, what can we leave the audience with that is accessible, that's reflective, relational, that anyone listening could try this week to better understand themselves or feel more
Mm.
connected?
Mm. I have two things. The first one I can't take any credit for. It was something that one of my university professors told us when I was doing my master's on art therapy. And I don't know where he got it from, but I will credit him. His name is Andrew Marshall Tierney. When he described art therapy to us, and trying to encourage patients to be creative, he used the phrase, tell them to take a line for a walk.
A line.
So you've got a pen, you've got a paper, just take a line for a walk.
Okay. I'm going to
And
do it right now while you're
and
talking. Go ahead, keep
do
going.
you know, and just see where it goes. Just take a line for a walk, and
Okay.
see where it goes. That's a great way to start the creative process. Don't have a plan, just take a line for a walk and see where you go. You don't have to do a continuous line, but just start somewhere.
Oh, wow. Yes,
So
this
I
feels good.
love that phrase, and I use that a lot for patients when they're not quite sure where to start, because a blank page can be very intimidating.
Yes.
It
That's,
can be. And I've had patients stare at that blank page for 30 minutes and only start making in the last kind of 10, 15 sometimes. The second thing that to answer your question that people can leave with is kind of ask more questions. Um, like if you're not sure about something, you've got a sense, you're not, are they looking at me this way? Did they say that? What did they mean? Ask.
yeah.
Let's shift the mind reading, let's shift the assumptions, and let's see if we can put that into a question to understand more and make it explicit.
Right.
In MBT, we talk about explicit mentalizing. Let's make it known in the relationship. Let's check it out. Let's
Okay.
ask, let's explore together. If I
Wow.
don't ask, I won't know.
That's true. Ask more questions. I'm all about that. Ask more questions. And some people are scared to ask questions because they were taught that asking a question can cause dire consequences.
Mhm.
So I love that you putting art because in case they can't speak or they can't talk about it at the moment, you get them to give, to walk the line. I love that. Um, is there anything you would love? Oh, first of all, I want to show in case, this YouTube, this is my line. This is what came
It
out
has an
all of a
eye.
sudden. Isn't
It
that
has an
weird?
eye. No, it's great.
I love it. I could do
You
art.
started somewhere.
Yeah, I love taking any kind of art anytime there's some in
Mhm.
the community art. Yeah, and that's the thing too. Like for those is, people can find Eventbrites. People can find
Yeah,
local art
yeah.
places for them. It doesn't have, you can learn a skill. You can just go. There was a thing I
Mhm.
did during COVID that really helped me was Art for Healing. I don't know if you heard it. It's based in
Mm,
California and someone
I've heard of it.
gets
Mhm.
certified and she actually sat with people. It was four of us, I remember. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I want to do this again. I want to do it again because it was a time for connection and she just guided, not with exact what to do. She would ask questions and then play like classical music. It's art for healing. I'll put a link into, but they specifically say they are not art therapists.
Yes.
They are not art therapy. So, but it would be cool to take. So, how did someone work with you or find you or, tell me about how people can connect with you.
Yeah, absolutely. To learn more about Thrive, they can go to www.gothrivemh.com. And there's loads of information about me and about the program that I'm running there.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
Of
And in
course.
answer to your other question too about other ways people can be creative,
Yeah.
that there is definitely I still love the skill of art and being, knowing the skills behind it. And I might have a patient every now and again. It's like, Anna, I want to get this proportion to make this. Show me how to do it. I say, give it a go. But if you really, really want to learn the skill, then I'll
Right.
demonstrate it to you. But another way to be creative is looking at art, being around art.
Oh,
Go to a
yes.
gallery. You were talking earlier about people's experiences or how they feel looking at artwork. I challenge people to look at the art and then read the information. I think
Mhm.
sometimes we read the information first and then we look at the art. But try the other way around.
Yeah.
Still give space to what they want you to know because that's really important, but just have a
Right.
moment just to grow your relationship with an artwork first. How does it feel? What do you like? What do you not like? What do you see?
Yeah.
What do you get from it? What mood does it have? And
Yeah.
then read the title,
Right.
and then look back at it and see, does it change? Does it feel different?
Oh no, Anna, listen, I go to a lot of the art galleries around locally, and I went to the one in Spain. Oh my gosh, I forgot the name already, but it's the biggest one in Spain. And I remember there's going to be some artwork that will move you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to me, to take the time, literally, they actually had a nap room in this art gallery in Spain. And I see why, because after 4 hours, because you're taking in all this beautiful old art, and some of them I'm like, oh, I don't get it. But then my husband got it, or someone else got it. See, and that's the thing a human needs to understand in art and creativity is there's no 100% right way because
Mm-hmm.
that's creative, like it comes out of your, this is the important part because this is where I don't know if you've heard your clients say this and I want to talk about this maybe a little even though I was about to say goodbye, but it's some of my clients feel like they're going insane. And I said many of my creative clients are walking that fine line between insanity and creativity, right? That's how I see it. Some of them because they're there, and it's like you're the one who's starting the line or creating the first thing that has never been created before. So it does feel lonely. It does feel
Mm,
misunderstood. It feels like you don't because that actually shows you that you are a leader or this is your calling and your path because think about all the really great artists. A lot of them have stories like behind their sadness or, something they lost, grief. And it's understanding creativity is a way to express it out in a healthy way.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is. And it can be helpful to be around other creatives as well, to find a community, virtual, whatever that might be. I know you were talking about COVID. During COVID, I did a lot of life drawing virtually, which is very interesting to be able to do, to be able to engage with that on that platform, to still feel connected to a creative community. So they're out there, like you said, there's many sites, there's many organizations where you can be connected, but it's helpful to be around other creative thinkers.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Well, Anna, is there anything you'd like to say to the audience before we say goodbye?
I think we covered the main essence of it. Thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure to be here and engage and kind of reminisce about, where things started as well. So thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, yeah. And thank you. And everything we talked about, resources and stuff will be in the show notes.
Yes.
Okay, everybody. All right. And don't forget to please trust in the Lord, guard your heart, and renew your mind. Bye. And now for the disclaimer to make sure you understand that you are responsible for you. The content provided on the Holistic Counselor podcast is for entertainment and informational purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified mental health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical or mental condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay seeking it because of something you have heard on this podcast. The views expressed on this podcast are my personal opinions and do not represent the views of any professional organizations with which I am affiliated. Call your doctor, 911, or 988 immediately if you have a medical emergency. The Holistic Counselor podcast does not recommend or endorse any specific tests, physicians, products, procedures, opinions, or other information that may be mentioned on the podcast. Reliance on any information provided by the Holistic Counselor podcast, guests appearing on the podcast at the invitation of the Holistic Counselor podcast, or other listeners to the podcast is solely at your own risk. Confidentiality notice. If you engage with the Holistic Counselor podcast by commenting or posting and are a client, please be aware that you may be revealing information that could compromise your confidentiality. Please remember that disclosing your identity or personal details can be linked to your clinical material. As a therapist, I am bound by confidentiality and will not respond to any disclosures of this type on this podcast. I am committed to upholding the ethics and confidentiality of the therapeutic relationship, which extends to all forms of communication in accordance with the laws and professional guidelines that govern mental health professionals. I want you to know that your privacy is of utmost importance, and you are responsible for protecting it when interacting on this platform or any other public forum. Thank you.